To solve the world's great problems, you need to adopt a much more interdisciplinary approach. And so we want to create people who are able to think in this interdisciplinary manner and who start with the question, which problem do I want to solve? And then they ask, how do I get the knowledge and the skills to solve that problem? Instead of saying, let me get a degree in a specific field and then try and apply it later on to the real world. We're saying start the other way around. Start with the problem you want to solve and then curate your knowledge around that problem. And so we've identified 7 grand challenges that the world will have to address in the next 50 years. These are challenges like urbanization. How do we think about building great cities from a perspective of the architecture that's needed, to the civil engineering that's required, to transportation systems? All of these things need to come together to really address this challenge of urbanization. Another big challenge we face is education. Around the world, education models are being questioned in the West and in more developed markets, which have had high access to education. There's a need now to reinvent that education with the advent of artificial intelligence and automation. Healthcare is another big challenge. In the US, for example, a huge portion of the GDP is taken up in healthcare, which is not necessarily the most effective. In continents like Africa and Asia, how do we leapfrog and build new healthcare models that leverage the best of technology and healthcare policy? Infrastructure is another big challenge. How do we build roads and railways and ports? For example, Elon Musk's Hyperloop. Is that a great opportunity to leapfrog and build an entire new transportation system that is much more efficient and effective? And what happens when you have driverless cars? What are the implications of that for infrastructure? Youth unemployment is another grand challenge that the world faces. Across the world, more and more young people are coming out and they can't get jobs anymore. This is potentially a ticking time bomb, which requires innovative thinking to find ways of creating young people who are able to create their own jobs, or who are better prepared for the jobs that do exist, right? And who can reinvent themselves as the world changes. Governance is another grand challenge. We need to think about how do we improve governance systems around the world that create more just and equitable societies, and that prevent discrimination against minorities, and that really enable every human being to be able to live up to their full potential. And finally, climate change. Across the world, we're seeing an increasing incidence of hurricanes and natural disasters and global warming and rising sea levels and environmental degradation. There's so much that is being caused because of climate change. And this is going to require collaboration of an unprecedented level across the world to really address this issue and to understand the politics and the science and the technology that needs to come together to really address climate change.